Hey guys, how's it going? Derek Craig here with oilfieldbasics.com. Got a pretty good special for you here today. We're going to be exploring the world of offshore, and you're going to be coming on the journey with me. I know about this much about offshore, so we're going to see what we can learn today here. And I'm at the Ocean Star Museum here in Galveston, Texas, so just barely south of Houston. And we're going to do a little bit of a tour. They've given me permission so I can record. So we're going to just kind of walk around and see what we can learn. Alright, so I don't know exactly where to start this, but I'm on the third floor right now, and I've kind of went through this museum once already, so I'm just kind of doing a recap with you guys. But I'm on the third floor, so it's the top floor. This is actually a rig that had been decommissioned, I think, in the 80s, and basically they had, done some modifications and stuff, but a lot of the bones are still here, and they've turned it into a pretty good museum. So I think pretty well the best part to start is just kind of talk about the different ships and different ways you can drill, and just kind of the first things you do to get the process started. Alright, so I think one of the first things we realize is just how expensive all of this is. And you have a pretty nice display over here of offshore and some of the different platforms that are used, and including some of the subsea works. And we'll see a lot more of that up close, but right here's a pretty cool sign as you first come in the third floor. This shows kind of day rates, and I don't think they're probably too far off modern day prices. Semi-submersible, $313,000 per day. Drill ship, basically $500,000 a day. So there's lots of different ways that we can explore for oil offshore. Lots of different types of platforms, different ways you drill, different ways you produce. It all depends on the water depths, depends on the well itself, and a bunch of other factors. All right, so next stop should be the drill floor. So let's check it out. And on our way up, we see that nice, I don't know if you call it shipyard, I guess a rig yard, but whatever you want to call it. Some rigs over there. Those are semi-submersible, so you can see the difference. They basically float. All right, so as we continue to walk up here toward the drill floor, we see below us, this is basically the pipe deck that they've converted. They have other pieces of equipment down there that they're just kind of displaying. Kind of review that here in just a bit. You can see, like I said, this is a jack up. So there's, I guess, part of the leg, whatever you want to call it, that is still above the water and above the top of the rig here. The rest of it's below the water, and it's sitting on a big pad. All those legs, there's 3 legs on this platform, and they basically go down and sit on a big mat on the bottom of the ocean, and that way it disperses the weight. But anyways, up here on the drill floor, a lot of this is kind of outdated. I mean, well, some of it. Some of the, like right off the bat, the Kelly bushing. It's cool to see in museums, and you're going to see a lot of them in museums just because they're old and nobody really uses them much anymore. But that's what we got here. So that top part right there, the yellow is the traveling blocks, obviously the mast or the derrick. That red thing is the Kelly bushing. So that's what actually turns the pipe in this right here. Modern rigs, and most rigs nowadays, pretty much you got a top drive system, which is actually on the floor down there. That's the top part that will connect to your traveling blocks. Hook it on there, and then this bottom, it spins the pipe and everything. So you don't have to. I'm not going to get into the details of how a Kelly system works, but it takes a whole lot longer to drill that way. Just a heads up. If you want to see how that works, just look up other videos on YouTube and see it actually in action. It's hard to explain unless I have a whiteboard. But anyway, so right behind it is the iron roughneck. So that's basically, I don't know if it's fully hooked up to where you can see it, but basically whenever they want to make or break a connection, it would move forward to the pipe. And then basically like big tongs would make and break the connection and torque it up to very specific amounts. This is a power tong here, so it does pretty similar work. Just one though, you'd have to that would be able to do both your upper and your lower connection. Back here is the draw work, so it's actually what's going to be raising and lowering the traveling blocks. So the wire wraps all the way up top of the derrick and then starts going onto the looping around the traveling block and the crown block at the very top. There's just different handles to control all that. So back here, this is your accumulators. So that's actually what's going to be powering your BOPs, your blowout preventers. So that's the storage tanks that Here's the controls for the BOPs that they had on this rig. So it basically controls the accumulator back here. It's also got manual ways you can actuate it. It looks like this shows your pressures. You can actuate chokes and stuff. I'll show you the choke manifold next. So choke manifold, they have it over here on this side of the deck. It's a big red thing right there with all the valves. Basically, if you get a kick or some kind of pressure you need to release or control, yeah, you do that there. There's some of the controls for that, my understanding. Again, some of the old stuff too, like even the stuff I know what it is on modern day rig, stuff don't look like this on modern rigs. But I'll kind of look at, so here's a drill pipe on the right. These two are drill pipe, that's the drill collars. You can see how much heavier they are. You can also see that drill pipe actually has like an external upset end, so it actually kind of gets bigger at the connection, whereas the drill collars do not do that. Some are spiraled, they're not all spiraled. But they just provide heavier weight on bit. So just a heavier weight pipe basically is all that is. Right there is a BOP, as viewed from above, obviously. I'll show that more in depth here in a minute. That was a decompression chamber right there for divers. I don't know if that's on modern all the rigs or not, or if that's just something they had added on, but it's a logging trailer right there. There's a cementing unit, pump cement. There's a remote what do they call it? Remote operated vehicle, and then there's a subsurface tree, or yeah, subsea Christmas tree. Now on this side we see the escape pod and a wireline unit, and there's a nice little speedboat zipping by. You can do those. They're like jet boat tours. You can do a lot of stuff. Right there's a Carnival something cruise line. But anyways, right here is a separator, and that's a way they can raise and lower crew onto and off the structure here onto a boat. Those are the shell shakers that separate your cuttings and your from your mud. You also have the crane for lifting and the helicopter deck that they actually relocated. They did work on some of this inner structure here, this right side of this vessel, to make it a museum basically. Here's a semi-submersible rig. You can see what the structure of it kind of looks like. It would just float. And it would have all of these things are going to have like some kind of thrusters on them that keeps the boat positioned against waves and whatever, all the tides. There's another similar version. Right there's a spar, and you can see that would actually, a lot of that would actually be underwater, but it's for real deep water drilling or production. Actually, it's typically production. I'm sorry, it's for deep water production. Oh, okay. To drill that deep in that deep water, typically they use drill ships, is my understanding, which are like that over there. There's the drill ship. It's a big part of actually, drilling before you can start drilling is actually getting the rig there. So in some situations, this sign says basically we have a real far way to go, or economics, might be this way, that you end up having to use a heavy lift vessel to do transportation. So instead of actually typically just towing it out like they typically do, it's actually loaded onto a heavy lift vessel. Here are some boats used for transportation of equipment. Okay, so let's say the well is drilled. I know I skipped, I'm sure, a ton of stuff, but pretty high level, guys. Let's talk about completions, production, and go from there. So the completions of an offshore well is going to be a lot different. One of the things I've heard about pretty commonly is the idea of gravel packing. So basically, you've got a cased hole through your pay zone and cement outside of it, but because these wells are typically so high rate and high pressure, You can actually get a lot of sand from the formation or whatever be the case that actually comes into the well, and that can just leads to all kinds of trouble. So what they a lot of times do, I guess, is what they call gravel pack. So you'll actually have in your, this blue line is your casing here. So inside the casing you'll have basically you have crackers, so kind of isolating the production zone, and then you'll also have basically a screen of slotted liner kind of deal. So it kind of looks like that. You can see the little tiny holes, basically just forming a screen, and then they'll actually pump, they call it gravel packing, so kind of like bigger sand grains out in between your casing and your tubing, or all the tools inside here, and that way it actually helps keep the sand from being produced. And I guess one thing I didn't say, obviously, your casing's perforated too in this case. This is a pretty good model showing production operations. And I'm guessing these are the individual well heads that's going to different manifolds, and then eventually up to the production vessels. So in that case, there's a production spar. It's pretty similar, probably to this. I thought this was a cool little display. It kind of shows, you're going to have a lot of cords, cables, whatever you want to call them, going down to the seafloor. So it kind of shows, this is called the umbilical system, or the umbilical cords. Basically have a bunch of cords on the inside. Some of them would have like hoses contain valves, gauges, chokes, so all your controls and everything to the seafloor, and it also helps get you information. You can read your pressures and everything at the seafloor on your wellhead. So this is basically a really big, I don't know, model, I guess, of an offshore production platform. And the sign pretty much just says that, back in the day, you didn't really have all the software and everything to just have a model of this. You actually had to have a physical model, so if you wanted to change something out. So the nice thing about it is it's labeled pretty well. You can kind of see what some of the stuff is, and we're only able to see really one side of it, but you got a bunch of generators on here, all your electrical equipment, you got housing, you have sewage treatment, you got a lot of stuff for producing and refining to some extent what you're producing. You got scrubbers for the flares, or your flare stack going on here at the end, compressors, a lot of stuff on here. And I guess some of them, I don't know if this is still true to the day, but some of these production platforms, I guess, have a rig on them for drilling more wells. So I guess that would help the economics of the project. I'm sure too to service wells that need it. But like there's like your oily water coalescer, and I'm guessing from what I've heard, some of the things people told me, all your water that's produced, and this might not be in every single case, but some cases, if not most, you can actually treat the water and put it back into the ocean. This is said to be a model of a subsea wellhead. Don't ask me what all those acronyms are for, I don't know. So this is a trencher. So there's actually a big ship outside that kind of looks like that. That's not part of the museum, but is nearby, and you can see it. This is how they lay the pipeline, the production pipelines. And so this is, I guess, what is crawling along the seafloor basically, and is actually trenching, making the trench and laying the pipe. And so this is what's pulling it. And this is a model of a pipeline. So that one would be for your actual production flow. And then the one below it actually has hydraulic lines, electrical lines, and other stuff like that. So here's a pig. It's falling apart. This should be pretty round, but you can see it's like crumbling. But anyways, a lot of some electronics in there, like calipers. So that's, you know, the pipeline once they're in production, just making sure that everything's cleaned off of them. And there's a lot of different types of pigs, and they're used pretty widely across the industry. This is a sidewall core gun, so it actually shoot out and collect samples of the reservoir. That's not really when things are in production though. That's before. That's more like the well in the drilling phase of the well. Here's a personal transport, like I said earlier in the video. They're gonna lower it down to a boat. Here's a bunch of cores. So this is actually kind of going backwards now. So we're going more towards exploration. So this is really where the exhibit starts. This is the first floor. You can see the different types of formations they have here. So it's kind of more like a tight gas sand they're showing there of Texas. You can see it's got a lot of cracks, but pretty tight rock. Limestone, fractured rock. This is actually, I guess, Austin chalk. You can see it's pretty heavily fractured. This is tight sandstone, I guess, tight gas sand out of Texas as well. This is a real coarse grain sandstone. Probably is more reservoir quality, I'm guessing. I mean, I know Austin chalk is a reservoir in Texas. Okay, I think this is a pretty good spot to talk about reservoir stuff. So I guess a lot of the offshore reservoirs, a lot of them have to do with salt deposits. So actually have salt deposits from whenever you think they were deposited, and actually they flow, I guess. They can actually flow, and it'll cause the rocks above it and around it to just deform and basically create these places that oil and gas that is migrating up can be trapped in. So you can imagine, like right there would be probably a pretty good trap, and you're seeing like seismic, all this down in here, and that's showing you seismic readings. But so that's kind of a little reservoir model there. And I guess this is how they do exploration, like acoustically offshore. So they have a boat and it pulls a bunch of geophones, hydrophones, but that's actually what's listening. But they have air guns that actually, right here is one on display. They call it a sleeve gun. Pneumatic device used for marine seismic reflection surveys. The device works by creating a sound source with a sudden release of spherical bubble of compressed air into the water column. So it's going to basically create a energy wave down. It's going to bounce. They're going to bounce differently off of the different layers, and then bounce back to the geophones or the hydrophones. And you can get your model kind of look like that. So this is kind of showing some of the different ways you can drill wells. I mean, obviously, directionally, this is pretty common. You have multiple kind of legs going into one well, reaching the reservoir. There's a big drill ship. Here's a BOP, a model of a BOP, a blowout preventer. This is kind of I guess a transporter, whether they can transport it to location. And this is actually showing ways people used to dive and kind of the evolution. So I don't know what it is now, but that was the old days here. And they had to go into a decompression chamber after diving, but they can do work with that big suit on. I guess they must be pretty talented. Here's a video of the ROV working. Alright, so we're on the pipe deck, so we're gonna see some of the stuff we saw earlier closer up, and then that'll about wrap this video up. This is the cementing, used for cementing, basically a big pump. There's a Christmas tree, like a normal Christmas tree on land. That's not a subsea by any means. Here's the top drive closer up. Here's the hyperbaric chamber close up. Some dude chilling in there. This is the BOP. So I want to show this. This is very relevant. I'm sure things have changed on BOP in a pretty scientific level, but on a big picture, lots of it's similar. So obviously when the BOPs are in use, they look, or put together, they look like that. It's actually hanging from the rig floor that we were on earlier. Both sides are going to be in, so that's how it normally looks. This, you can actually use the hydraulics of the unit to actually screw it out, and then it's actually, that is the BOP part right there. So that's how it seals around the pipe. Notice the pipe ram set to a particular size pipe. Sometimes you have to change out those seals. As you can see, it's gotten bad over time, but that's weathered from being open. And you can also use this to manually actuate the BOPs. Sometimes we had to use that in well control incidents, but otherwise it's hydraulically controlled using the accumulator. Oh shoot, there's a cruise ship. It's leaving. Carnival Freedom, bye. Everybody's on top, just chilling. Enjoy your cruise. I don't know where you're going. That's exciting. Anyways, here's the fluid pump. Back to oil field. Here's a version of a subsea tree, and I don't know how to explain that to you other than the basic functions of a wellhead, but here's the ROV. Got their little fingers there, little tool tips, little thrusters, their propellers. Okay, now going to the other side of this pipe deck here. And of course not all this would be on a pipe deck, I'm sure, but it's a museum now, guys. This is the old wireline unit. You can see the wireline kind of spool, and you can see that little arm that helps to unspool it. It's your escape pod. This is your logging trailer or mud logging or something, I don't. Yeah, mud logging cabin. And there's your shell shakers and your separator up there and your legs. So we pretty much went around most of the museum they have access to. Before we get there, here's kind of what the legs of this go down to. So there's like a big pad on the ocean floor that spreads out the weight, but it's actually connected to the legs so that whenever they're ready to move on, you just start raising them up, and then the pad will come with it. I'll raise it up to the bottom of the rig and then tow it to wherever else, next location. And so now I just kind of want to show you something to kind of wrap it up. Let's talk about a little bit about the reservoir, its porosity and permeability. And if you are familiar with that, good, the video's done. You can leave. Hopefully you enjoyed it, but I want to show this because it's a very good visual of porosity and permeability. So hopefully this will benefit someone here. Actually, got this nice little display up here that shows porosity and permeability. So you can see, of course, these are all circular grains. So they're not, you can imagine a rock isn't always, you know, the circular grains. So you can imagine if they're anything but circular, they're going to have less porosity. Porosity is basically just the space between compared to the overall matrix volume. This one's really good for showing permeability. Alright guys, so basically the model, you can see that the more space there was in between the rock grains, the easier the hydrocarbons or the liquids can flow through it. That's basically permeability. So hope you enjoyed this quick little tour, learned a lot. I definitely learned more than I was able to show on video, but tried not to come anybody's way that was actually touring the museum as another guest. And I've got a parking meter that's about to expire, so I don't want to get towed or ticketed. But anyways, there's the Ocean Star, I couldn't remember his name. Ocean Star platform from a distance. One more thing I'll add to the video too. If you guys, anybody that's watching, happens to have a lot more knowledge about offshore stuff, please get in touch with me. We can do another video. You can shoot a video, or else you can be on the podcast, something. But let's expand our knowledge about offshore stuff, because there's a lot to learn. It's a whole other world. Everything's bigger and definitely more expensive. So it takes way longer to plan. It's a different world, guys. But anyways, hope you learned something. I know I learned a lot from visiting the museum. So I'll catch you guys in the next video.